so much for coming back to another episode of the Art Study of You. I am your host, Cameron Gilmore. This episode is going to be one of those that you're going to replay multiple times because there's a lot inside. It's very packed. Listen, Anna Alt and I met through a mutual friend of ours, Joseph. Shout out to my man, Joseph. And when we connected and we started talking, man, it was just powerful. And her story is one that will inspire so many people. See, she went through this traumatic event through the better part of her life. And now she's empowering other people to know that you can get past through some of this trauma. Yes, it was around a religion that was very controlling. It dictated her entire life. She couldn't celebrate things most people celebrated. I won't go into too much details because she does a phenomenal job about it. The one thing that I want to really stress about what Anna does is she's very firm in her convictions. She's very firm in who she is. She's very firm now that she has progressed this far in her life to be just the person that you just want to get around and talk and mingle with and just understand even more. See, Anna knows a couple of things about where she is, right? She knows she has struggled. She knows that she's not perfect, which nobody is perfect, right? She knows that she's trying to do the best she can, but she talks in great detail about how she went first to understand who she was better and then understand how she could help other people. In doing so, she goes into depth about how in the interview, she's going through a divorce. So those of you listening to this years down the road, she's probably progressed in life. But then she talks about how, very impactful, she talks about how her and her husband came to this decision that outside of the traditional way that she got married, because it was just one of those things that you expected, right? You grew up in this church, you only married within this church, and it was just something you did. But she talked about, well, man, once we were able to figure out who we are and understand who we are, we probably would be really good friends, but we probably would never got married. I'll let her talk about this story because it's fantastic. What she does, what I love about this is she tells us and just kind of goes through this idea of men, just because it's tradition doesn't mean we have to follow the tradition. Just because you think you should be one way and your mind and your body's like, man, I want to go this way, that's okay. And people should love you regardless of that. And that's the big story behind this. And the point is people just love people. Let's just all love each other because we're all going through stuff. We all need a hug. We all need, people that we can lock arms with. So this episode is going to be amazing. I'll have all the links down below. We'll jump right into where we are with Anna Alt. Thank you so much for being a part of this project. You could take, 5 minutes, kind of introduce yourself, who you are, where you grew up. But more importantly, we'd love to know what your why is.
Hi, everybody. Hi, Cameron. Thanks for having me. So I told you before we started this that I was a little nervous. I've been interviewed a couple of times, but I was really impressed with the lead up to this and just getting to know you. So bear with me a little bit. Yep, my name is Anna Alt. I love my life. My why. I have never liked those questions. I've never been a fan of any of the cliche sayings or, sit down at a networking event or a table and of people that you don't know and you try to get to know people, right? I have always said, I don't want to talk about the weather. I want to get deep really quick. I want to know what's your favorite color? What's some kind of trauma that you dealt with that made you who you are? So I have been very disdainful of the question of what is your why for years. But about 2 months ago, maybe, I figured out my why. And I won't bore you with the details right now. I'm sure as the interview goes through, that my why will shine through. But my why is to make sure that everyone understands who I am, why I do what I do, and what I do. So it's all about understanding. That is my why. I just want people to understand. I want people to understand me. I want people to understand themselves. I want people to understand the people that are around them. So how does that sound?
That's awesome. But so help me understand then, like, where does this understanding come from? Like we
I,
hear that too, the cliche, like, I want you to understand me as much as, you want to understand, like people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. Right. Is that kind of the mantra that you're going after of, I want you to understand how much I care first? Or please dive a little bit deeper on just understanding you better.
I have reinvented myself one really huge time. Well, maybe, I mean, I'm going to say two really huge times. I'm 40. I turned 40 this year. And I am so completely different. I'm a third person that I've at this point in my life. And each of the two lives that I've had prior to this, that's where the need and the why of the understanding, because whether I was left by other people or I left people, I wish the best for everyone that has been in my past lives. I just want them to understand why I left, why they left, or who I am now. Is that fair? Does that
100%. 100%. So you mentioned something about past trauma, right? You want, helping other people come over past trauma. Guys, I want you to understand something really, really important to this. When, Anna and I had our first conversation, we dove really deep into some of the things that she had overcome and has come through. And so I say this because I want to be super respectful of a lot of things. Religion is a hard topic to talk about. They always say never talk about religion, politics, in a mutual setting, right? But because Anna was gracious enough to talk about this earlier and gave us permission, I want us to go dive a little bit into this, because what you guys are going to see, yes, she's owned multiple businesses. Their first business crashed and burned, and we'll get into that. But let's start in this part here, because the ability to take on hard times was something that you were used to, right? We don't need to know all the religions or the details, but please help us understand that strictness that you had from a young age, and then growing up, like that controlling box, if you will. Help us understand kind of that system that you were around or in for so many years. That will be question number one. And then question two is, how did you start to learn this isn't really for me?
okay? So I was born and raised in a very strict, high controlled religion. And my mother was a convert. A lot of times, converts to any organization, whether that's religious or otherwise, tend to have more passion than somebody who has been born into a religion or any kind of secular organization. So my mother was associated with this particular religion as a child from family members that she loved very, very much and held very dear, that they were respectful and loving, and gave her a sense of family life that she wasn't necessarily getting from her core family. So my mother joined this particular religion full force not long before I was born. And then she met my dad and they got married, had me. Growing up in this religion, it was isolating. They live in the community with everyone else, but they do a very good job of making it making you feel badly if you want to be a part of the quote unquote world. And they did a very good job. The organization, the religion, did a very good job of promoting unity within. So from my first memories, I knew that most of my extended family, they did celebrate holidays. They did celebrate birthdays. We would be associated, but I always knew I was different. I knew that if we were going to what I would later find out was Christmas Eve dinner, it was not called Christmas Eve dinner. It was called December 24th dinner. And my family of four had regular plates, and then the rest of the extended family had Christmas plates. So really, at a young age, I knew I was different. Then you go to kindergarten, first grade, whatever. That's when that feeling of my family, my extended family, not really being on the same page, then you know that most of the world is not on the same page. So very quickly, I distinctly remember my mom going to our teachers and saying, Anna will not be participating in any holiday practices. So if you're in art class and the assignment is to draw a jack-o'-lantern, well, she can't do that. Or if you're in music and you're learning Christmas songs for the Christmas play, Anna has to go sit out in the hall. You were not allowed to stand up and put your hand over your heart and say the Pledge of Allegiance, because this particular religion boasts being separate from the world. So that even means being separate from any government entity. You wouldn't be showing allegiance to God if you were showing allegiance to the flag of a country. So I was taught at a young age, when everyone else was standing up and doing the Pledge of Allegiance, the best thing to do is to sit, and the least thing that you can do is stand to be respectful, but never, ever, ever put your hand over your heart. So I started feeling that sense of isolation. My dad was not in this particular religion, but he allowed my mother. I wasn't allowed to be friends with kids outside of school that weren't Jehovah's Witnesses. You weren't allowed to do extracurricular activities. So, cheerleading, soccer, that stuff was all out. So yeah, just a really sense of isolating. I distinctly remember at the age of 5 praying, because that's what you're told to do, but praying knowing that, and I would say, I don't know if you're real, but I'm really sorry that I didn't really believe, but please spare me. So this particular religion, the fear mongering is sickening. I had nightmares of Armageddon coming, and the pictures associated with the books of this particular religion would scare a grown adult. So I had this fear that the world would attack us and burn me at the stake. Like, I had this irrational fear of being burned. So the mental manipulation that came from that was really high. And then, I tell people I didn't have a terrible life, but it was not a good life for me. And with or without that particular religion, I kind of had some wackadoodle situations with my parents. I don't. So I'll stop there. There's way more, and let me know how much more, but I'll stop there because I feel like that gives you a kind of a base of that mindset that I grew up in.
Before we get started, I need to give a shout out to my biggest sponsor, Warrior Energy Drink. The reason why we partnered together is because we have the same mindset, with the same drive. We're for the people. We're about the people. Look, Warrior Energy Drink has 0 sugar options, and they got water as well. Low calories, great taste, very affordable, no crash, big energy fast, high in B vitamins, awesome design, culture design, 160 milligrams of caffeine. Other energy drinks have way too much, and they're always giving it back to their community. They're paying it forward. Partner with them, guys. Click the link below. Go get yourself your own Warrior Energy Drink and go crush today. So this, guys, look, and I'm grateful that Ann is opening up. Look, this isn't like might probably get plenty of DMs and people just ripping me a new one for this bashing on religions, and it really isn't. Like, we're not at all. What we're establishing, though, is how Anna went through this trauma as a kid, right? And it came out on the other side and didn't quit. So first off, Anna, I want you to know that we all, everyone that's listening in the US and globally, we all love you. We all thank you for not quitting and not giving up, because the trauma that you went through easily could have been like, my life sucks. I'm probably better off not here. contrary to what you were probably taught from a religious standpoint, right? But that I'm sure that thought at one point probably was like, why am I even here? Like this can't be life. Live in fear, grow up, have kids, teach them to live in fear. That's just not possible. So thank you for not quitting on yourself, because through you today, and those that will continue to listen to this, not from now, but years ago, will continue to be inspired. So I need to say that up front, because I know people are probably thinking the same thing. Thank you, Anna, for not giving up and quitting on yourself and believing in yourself. So I need to ask this question. How did facing that adversity of growing up and people that said, don't leave, if you leave, we're going to cut you off. How did that prepare you later in life to find the joy within you?
So when you are in this particular religion, if you leave, like you said, because I had told you, you get cut off. So my mother wrote me a letter saying that she was choosing the religion over me. I lost all of, so I have to say, I met my husband at the age of 17 and 18. We started dating. We got married at 20 and 21. And he truly believed the religion. He was raised by parents that were born in. That was the path that we were going to live together. Although I didn't believe it, all of my network of family, friends, and now the person that I was marrying all believed it. So that was the end goal, to raise a family, be in that religion, and just pushed forward. Because although I was brainwashed enough to think that although it wasn't great, it was the best out of what was available. So as my husband and I started raising a family, our children were going to the church with us, participating in activities with us. When my daughter was getting ready to go to kindergarten, I started having serious panic attacks, because I did not want my children to be in that same isolating, unjust, unfair life of being in that religion and going to school. So I started doing research in order to show my husband, hey, this might not be the best, and I'm not saying let's walk away, but let's try to manipulate the situation in order for our kids to have the best life possible. So for 6 months, I slowly but very methodically showed my husband little bits of pieces at a time, to the point where I started in January. By mid-July, I had shown him enough that something just kind of clicked for him, and I was willing to just play the game in order to not lose our friends and family and our entire life. But my husband is a man of truth and conviction, and he was not going to tiptoe and walk two worlds. So in July of 2014, he said, that's it. We quit cold turkey. We went from proselytizing on a weekly basis, sometimes multiple times a week, going to strangers' houses, telling them about this religion. We stopped going to the church multiple times a week, at least 3 times a week. We quit cold turkey. And I did that because it was the scariest thing that I had ever done. It was the scariest thing my husband had ever done. And it was, to be honest, it was the scariest thing my kids had ever done, because they were 5 and 6 at the time when we decided to leave. They were already starting to be quite indoctrinated. And my 6-year-old at the time did not want to stop going, because she knew without a doubt that grandma and grandpa and the other grandma would stop talking to us. So I had to find that inner strength, because although I knew it was super scary, in the long run, it was going to be the best for all of us, but especially for my kids, and especially for my kids' kids, that by the time I am a grandmother, all of that insanity will be long gone. You know what I'm saying? Like the trickle down would be a lot less for my kids. I think that was the question. I think I answered the question that you had. Forgive me if I did not.
Hey, everybody, I want to take this quick second here. A lot of you asked me, what journal do I use? My family use? Simple, this journal right here. See, my buddy Craig Smith has spent years and years developing a journal that takes everything that's up in here and puts it on paper so we can be edified and grow. So if you don't know what to write about, which oftentimes happens, he gives you ideas. And if you want power statements, things that say, I am this, he gives you those ideas. Now, when you look at on one page, it says, this is what I'm accomplished. This is what I am statements. And there's a quote every single day that you get to write on and focus on. The second page is write your daily thoughts, get it out of your head, put it on paper to be the best version of yourself. The link's down below. Listen, I get no money for this. It's just, I believe in this journal. I love this journal. It's changed my life, my family's life. And if you want, it'll change your life as well. You absolutely hit it out of the park. I mean, to be faced with a decision, friends and family, because listen, family builds self-esteem. Family builds our culture of who we are. When we rely on family, we rely on our friends. Like, it's this community, it's this bond that we have. Anna said it. Listen, guys, she's like, enough is enough. I'm going to take my family, her husband, her 2 kids, and we are going to find a better life for us. Not because we're crazy, not because we're rebellious, but we need to find a better life, something that is aligned with my spirit, my soul, my family, my community, and build a new community. And to leave all of that, knowing the doors would be shut, no room at the end, don't come see us, don't come knocking, we are completely going to cut you off. You want to talk about overcoming trauma? That's overcoming trauma. Kudos to you. Man, that was awesome. Holy crap. Like that. Let me ask this. So then now, how's your relationship with God? In this meaning that you didn't play the victim mindset, why me or why this, why is this situation? My life is horrible, but it's more of a, this happened for me. So how is that relationship that you have, if you call him God or if you call him the universe, whatever it is, what is that relationship like now?
Okay, so I loved it. When I saw that this was going to be a topic, it often has been a topic, a conversation when people hear my story about religion and faith, because those are 2 different things, right?
Correct.
Just today, I was heading into a Chamber of Commerce meeting, and a lady named Lori Kehoe, who I was actually just texting her right before this interview, she reached out and said, thank you so much for talking to me today. And I had it in my heart to let her know that when I started the business life that I'm doing now, nearly 5 years ago, she was one of the first people that treated me with respect and kindness and made me feel like I wasn't just this brand new person in the business world. So I say that because I need to give her props. And it's just funny because as we're walking in, she stopped me. And I thought she was going to talk about some big news that I had already had this week, but it wasn't. She said, what is your views on God? And I looked at her and she goes, I know. I'm like, but she knows me that I love talking about stuff like this. Mm-hmm. And the answer that I gave for many, many, many years, when I was, like I told you, and I was 5 years old, I distinctly remember praying, knowing that there wasn't a God, but I never trusted my own brain. So my brain said there wasn't a God, but I knew I had been brainwashed enough to know that I wasn't allowed to trust my own brain. So I don't think you're real, but just in case you are. So fast forward through the years, I would pray only because that is what I thought I needed to do. And it was disingenuous. When we left that religion, I decided, you know what? I am agnostic because I am not smart enough to know without a doubt that there is no God. And I am not smart enough without a doubt to know that there is a God. So that's why I said agnostic. I knew I was not atheist, and I knew that I definitely had a skewed view of Christianity. I didn't have the passion to find out if I believed other faiths and religions. So for a long time, I said I was agnostic. And 2.5 years ago, during COVID time, something happened to me that, and I'm not going to bore you with the details because half the people probably wouldn't even believe if I said this story, but something happened to me that without a doubt, I knew that there was a higher power. I don't know what that higher power looks like because I'm not smart enough to know. I don't know if I don't believe it's the Abrahamic God that you read about in the Bible that had Moses do the 10 commandments on tablets. I don't know if it's the Abrahamic God that says, you cannot do this, you can do this. The rule-driven Abrahamic God. I don't think that's what it looks like. He, she, whatever. I don't know if it's a masculine force. I don't know if it's Mother Nature. I don't know if it's karma. I don't know if it's in every single one of us because, I hear people say that God is in us. I don't know. But what I do know in my heart, my opinion, is there is some higher force, higher power. It could be aliens. It could be whatever. I don't know. So with that being said, and this is a very important part of who I am, I tell people all the time, I am very opinionated and I have made my life of not being ashamed ever, 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 ever anymore of what I am, who I am, and what I believe. So this is what I say to people. Don't take my word for it because I believe nothing and I believe everything. Give it all to me. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. So is that a fair answer?
I'm on the second level of my house, and this is the part in this interview that I want to rip my shirt off, jump out the second story, and just scream as loud as I can. That was beautiful. That was amazing. I mean, at the beginning of the interview, she said, my why is for people to understand me. You understand her better now. You understand that the trauma she went through, she didn't say, woe was me. She said, this happened for me for a reason. And we're going to talk about it. She inspires more and more people all the time. But that answer that she gave you is one of pure, just purity. And no one can take that away from you, which is fantastic. It's not about answering my question. It's about, how did you come to the discovery? How did you arrive to the point that you are today? How are we seeing the 5% that is this beautiful individual, this business, this mom, this woman of faith and power? How did we see that? It's because of the 95% of the crap that she went through to get here. That's the important part. That's the power. And if you guys are listening to this on Spotify or Apple, go watch that part, just that, or the whole thing on YouTube, and you will watch this transformation. You will see this extra light come through. You will see Anna perk up a little bit more because now she has a conviction. And that is amazing to watch. The transformation in the facial expression, the energy that just came out of that. You were like, ooh, that's why I'm so dang, we can't. We could stop there, but we won't. We just won't. Okay.
Okay, so hold on. So this isn't just a podcast, like an audio. This is also going to be a video.
Oh, 100%. This is going to be 100%.
Well, I didn't know, so I've been rubbing my nose. Whoops. Okay. Hi, everybody.
We're totally fine. I've been scratching my head the whole time. Okay. Let me give us 2 or 3 principles that you could share to somebody that would help in an individual going through similar, adversity. Not maybe a religious thing, but just self-doubt. I don't know, being shunned from a family because of a choice that you made to better yourself. Give us 2 or 3 principles that you could give to them that would be like, hey, hold your head high. You're going to be able to get through it.
So I used to tell people this all the time. I feel like I have probably needed to tweak it, But I used to say all the time, fake it till you make it. Like the religion that I was born in, appearances were very, very, very important. Physical appearances were super important. The way that you presented yourself was super important. So when I first left, I was a stay-at-home mom for 1 year, and then the following year I was a teacher assistant, and that year changed me. I had a lot of people who knew that I had come out of this high controlled religion, and they protected me and they mentored me. But my thing was, I dressed to the nines every single day. And I was in one of the special ed rooms where I would sit on the floor with kids. The kids would be messy. I would be messy. And people would kind of be like, Anna, what are you doing? Like, you're wearing dresses and you're sitting on the floor. To me, because I was still ingrained in this fake it till you make it mindset, and it worked for me. And then, after I stopped being a teacher assistant and I started doing what I do now in the business networking world, I still did that. I faked it till I made it. And I would tell people, that is a principle. Do it. It's the smartest thing. Well, now, where I am now, maybe it's not the best idea. As a more healed person, I would say maybe don't fake yourself and just be who you are. I had to do it this way for my own self, but if I were to tell my children or a young lady, a young woman, a young person that's starting out in the business networking world, I don't think I would say fake it till you make it anymore. I would say just own your weirdness. I'm really, really weird. I like being weird. So I guess those are two things, right?
I absolutely love that, guys. You think about it. Go follow. You guys will have all the links, right? The links are right here. They'll be in the podcast as well. Go follow her. It is so much fun to follow somebody who just knows their zone of genius, like Gay Hendricks talks about in The Big Leap, right? You're in that zone of genius. She understands where her upper limit is, and she just lives in the space that works well for her. This is so good. I thought this was going to be good. I didn't know it was going to be this good right off the bat. So, hey, if you guys need to put it on pause and go get a drink, go get a drink.
Okay, listen, my love language is words of affirmation. So you're making me feel really good too.
Oh boy, here we go. All right, let's switch a little real quick. So I was listening to a podcast. The gentleman that we talked about earlier before this, the actual
Mike Bowie.
Good old Mike. Yes, shout out to Mike. Thanks, Mike. It was a great listen. There was one quote that you said in there that I absolutely loved, and I loved all of it, but the one was really good. Is this idea of, if you see a need, your husband said there's a need that needs to be changed. It was to see a need, fill a need, right? So your husband sees a need in the painting industry, comes to you and says, hey, we got to go all in. Time to go in on the business. How do you muster up the courage to start a business? One, kind of where you guys were, especially at this time of the year, in the world and where it was. And then two, how do you do that as a couple, starting a business together?
So, little backstory before I answer that. When I met Dan, he was a third generation union painter. I was prepared to live the life of a union painter. I had come from, my dad was captain for commercial airlines, and I had a pretty stable life financially. I did not think we were wealthy by any means, but I knew that I was marrying somebody that was going to make less than my dad, and I was totally fine with that. So for the first 5 years of our marriage, he was a union painter. We had small houses. We went from one bedroom to a 2-bedroom to a 3-bedroom because we could only afford it as we went, and we fixed it up and remodeled it and sold it, each one. In 2008, when the economy tanked, Dan was still fairly young in the union, so he went from working 40 hours to barely working 20, and we needed money. So we thought we would start our own company because we had done all of the remodeling of homes. So we were like, let's open a general contracting company. And we had that for 5 years. I tell people that it was successful because I was a stay-at-home mom, paid all of our bills. We went on a vacation once a year, but we had no business owning a business. We didn't know anything about marketing. We didn't know anything about networking. We didn't know anything about processes. So after 5 years, all of that work dried up, and Dan went to work for another company, a design build company, and he learned the business end of a business. He had never, and this was 2013. I love to say that in 2013, he had never opened up a computer and had an email address. Like he had no clue about business. He learned processes and he learned spreadsheets. So after about a year and a half, the company we sold our company to kind of restructured, and he was ready to open up another company because he didn't work well working under people. He wanted to work for himself. He knew that there was a niche and a need for a high-end painting contractor who did what they said what they did, do what they say what they do, and that wasn't super, super, super expensive. Mm-hmm. So we opened up a company, and it was going to be just painting. Eventually, we added the flooring side because the insurances were similar, and we hired one of our best friends who had been in a union floor layer. So then it was painting and flooring. And then eventually so then I came to work with Dan on the business. I became the face of the company. And I did a really good job of getting our company name, a household name, and I was out there. I tell people I eat, drink, and talk for a living. So I was out there. People started calling us. Dan and Aaron. Dan was able to do all the processes as the owner and the office work. And then Aaron, as our production manager, was able to fulfill what Dan had put into place. Did I ramble? Did I answer your question? No. I don't know what the question was.
So back up, guys. So I kind of set this up. It was a little, those of you who know volleyball, right? I mean, just lob this thing up so she could spike it over the net. I knew that their first business didn't do very well. It didn't. 5 years, stress. But that's entrepreneurship. You won't succeed maybe at your first 1, 2, 3 businesses. But Dan did something, he pivoted and he said, I need to know the business side, the smart side, the how the books work, and then bring somebody else in who was smart. And then we need a face, and what better face than someone who can love to talk, but speak in a way that gets you super excited. I love that mindset of we've already know what trauma is. We did the hardest thing in the world. Now we're going to lose a business. Who cares? I say that now because you can look back and
absolutely.
Go, but to take us through that though, honestly, take us through that transition from we lost the business. Did it ever come back up? Did it ever surface back up of, man, we're starting a new business. What happened to our old business? Are we sure we want to do this?
For sure. I do remember that was the question. Sorry, I didn't answer it. So after the first company, we closed it down. For the first time in our life, Dan had a salary job, and it wasn't a whole lot of money, but I was able to really budget. I was able to know this is how much I can spend on groceries. I knew this is how much we can put to saving to go on a vacation, right? So it was wonderful having every single week knowing what it was, because my personality, I like things to stay the same. So when he did come to me and say, hey, I'm going to stop working for the design build company, I'm going to start a new company, I was like, what the heck? No. I said, I can't do that. I can't put myself in the life of not knowing how much how much money you're going to bring in. And maybe one week you make this much, and I think, okay, we're good. And the next week it's very little. But he promised me that he had learned from the 5 years and the failing of the first company. He promised me he had learned the business end, and his brain works really, really well, that processes work for him. And I've often said, I can always see when his brain, like when he's walking through his brain and there's just rows and rows and rows of file cabinets, and he can go and he can find a file cabinet, open it up, and he can go to the file and then go through that file and find the piece of paper and then find the little line of whatever he is trying to come out of his mind with. So I was scared. I was nervous. I didn't think it was going to work. But then it ended up working. And that is one thing that Dan has done a very good job, is taking especially business leaps. And I would just kind of follow along and go for the ride.
Oh, I love it.